Welcome back. Vlog number 2. My goal with this show, or with this vlog really, is not to create a how-to. My goal is to just give you some things to think about as you're thinking about talking to the internet, or as you might be thinking about talking to the internet like I am. So remember, the context of this is I'm starting a show called Talking to the Internet, podcast, YouTube. Content will go out on both. Sometimes there will be video, sometimes there won't. It all depends on my guests. But what I want to do is I want to walk through the steps I had to think about, or the things I had to think about in order to actually get a show up and almost launched. So I'm almost to the point where I can launch it at this point. So here we go. The first thing I had to think about was the idea. Right? When you're thinking about an idea, from all the advice I've heard and from my own personal thoughts on this idea thing is, you really want to make the show about something that you're really passionate about. And the reason why you want to do this is because it'll help you weather the storm of, I'm tired. It'll help you weather the storm of I don't have enough time, or I have competing responsibilities, or, things aren't going the way I want to. So, if you've ever studied startups of anything, right? Like they dip down into the valley of death, and then do they make it out, right? And will any creative venture make it out of the valley of death? So think about something that you're passionate about. For me, that was the human side of people who talk to the internet, right? A lot of times you get their content, right? You get them talking about product reviews, or doing something fun, or just making goofy side, playing a character, making goofy side things, or telling stories. But you don't often get anything about them, right? And that's what I care about. I care about the human side of the people who make things for the internet. The next thing you want to think about is realistically a name for the show, domain name, can you get it, right? And then social media accounts, right? All of these things kind of go hand in hand, and all of these things need to work together in order for you to actually be able to market the show well, or even have a better chance of marketing the show well. So I recommend that you go look for different tools, or look at different websites and things like that, and look, there are sites that aggregate, checking names for social media accounts and things like that. So are you able to find the name that represents your show? Because it needs to represent the show or whatever you want to do online, but it also needs to exist and across enough places that you're not confusing people with the different accounts that you're trying to make. Third thing, you've got a domain, you've got a name for the show, you've got social media accounts for the show. Now you need to come up with a description, taglines, right? Details about what you're going to use in the content of the show to explain the show to people. And the reason why you want to figure these things out is because you're going to end up putting these on the next step, right, which is the website, or you're going to put these on the social media account, right? These are going to be how people quickly learn about what your show is all about. Next, you're going to create a logo, right? So you need some sort of graphical way or visual way to embody your idea and embody the show, right? So artwork, logos, those type of things, social media banners. You're really going to need to create, all of these things, all of these quote unquote assets, right? That way, when you start to make these accounts and populate these accounts, they look professional and they look good, and they tell a clean story, and they're consistent across the story. So think about, how do you make the logo? Where do you go to make the logo, right? Okay, you've got a name, right? You've registered the domain. You've made your social media accounts. You've created artwork or logos or digital assets for these things. Now you need to go actually start creating things. You need to create your website. You need to create your social media accounts and populate your social media accounts. You don't actually have to start posting anything necessarily yet, because who are you going to post to? But at the same time, you need to create the entities there, that when you start releasing content, people have a place to go. They have a way to go do different things, or interact with you in certain ways. So what kind of stuff are you going to put on your website? Well, show feeds or links to YouTube episodes, right? Should you choose not to go straight with the YouTube platform, you need to put an about me, because people care, like they'll go and they'll check that out. You need to go figure out, are you going to do sponsorships? Are you going to try to get people to help fund you? If so, there needs to be a page about that. A contact page, right? How can they get a hold of you if they want to ask a question, or if they want to give you feedback, or anything like that. So these are the types of pages that at least the most basic form of a website need to have. When you're creating your website, I highly recommend you use one of the website builders. Don't try to do it on your own. There are a lot of website builders out there. that can easily and quickly allow you to build a site and get it up and really kind of just drag and drop things. That way you're not wasting a lot of your time on creating your presence online. You're actually making your time, or taking your time and putting it towards content creation, which is really, I think what you need to be focusing on. This other stuff is necessary, but it's sort of ancillary to that whole process. Now that you have your website up, right, the thing you need to think about is, distribution of your show. If you're going to do YouTube, YouTube handles the distribution. Okay, if you're going to do a podcast, you have to think about hosting, right? So the way the files get to people is really they're stored somewhere, and then when the people on their player, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Overcast or Castro or Pocket Cast, right, they're going to click a link, and the app or the device is going to say, give me the file, and it's going to reach out to the host, and the host is going to then let the person download the file off the host service. Some website builders will allow you to do this, some won't. So I end up using a third-party service to do this, right? It's called Pinecast, and Pinecast hosts my show for me. I have a link from there that allows me to kind of connect through all the other things, and then serve the show to the people in the places that need it. Some things that you want to really think about when you're doing this is, how long are your shows? How many shows do you plan on posting? Are you a daily show, a weekly show, bi-weekly? What size of files will you be putting up there? Do they put limits on that? So all of these services will have limits associated with them. So you want to pay attention to, what are the limits? Are there limits? And what are the best needs for your show? If we were a more technical, if this was a more technical type of a story, I'd give you the details of how to look that up, but it's not. So if you want to ask about that, feel free to do that, and I can give you more information. Once you've chosen your service, right, whether it's through your website builder or whether it's through a third-party system, the next thing you're going to look at is you're going to actually record an episode. So either it can be like an intro trailer episode, which is what I did, and I did that partially because I needed to invite guests, so I needed to give guests a way to know what the show is all about. But you could also just actually record your first show. The reason you need to do that is because when you submit to the directories like Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, they actually want a show. Like, they need a show because they review it. They review it and make sure that you're not doing anything crazy, and that you're legit. So you'll need to put a show up there, and you'll need to distribute it or publish it through your feed. That way it's there when you go to the next step, which the next step is actually submitting to be in the Apple Podcast directory and the Google Podcast directory. Those are the primary two drivers for a lot of shows. Other drivers would be, Spotify, something like that, or Stitcher. There are these various platforms that you can be involved in. You got to think about where you want to be distributed and how you want to be distributed. Some of them will add advertisements to your show, and you agree to that when you sign up. Others don't. They just literally are, a directory for database programs podcast programs to link to. So it sets up a database, and it says, if you want this show, this is the link. If you want this show, this is the link. So, for example, I use Overcast. So Overcast calls on the Apple Podcast directory and then goes from there in terms of grabbing your show. It makes the link kind of connection to your from the person who wants your content to your content. In order to actually apply, right, you go to either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, and you fill out this online form. In that online form, you're going to need a lot of this information that you made before, right? So you're going to need name your show, do you have a website, artwork, logos, description of the show, right? Like, all of this stuff you need to have ready to go. That's why I told you way up at the beginning of the show, I don't know why I pointed up, but that's why I told you at the beginning of the show, you got to have all this stuff ready to go, because then it lets this happen. After you hit submit, you wait, right? Somebody reviews it. If things look okay and things look good, they'll approve you. And now you can actually go on to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, go onto your podcast player, and actually see, the show up in the feed, or you can search for it and add the show to your app. Again, if you're on YouTube, this is all handled through the YouTube system, right? They have their own system, right? Realistically, they don't have a review process for you. You just have to create the channel, and you'll need all the artwork, and you'll need all the show descriptions and things like that to make it look professional and to make it look like you're actually know what you're doing. So You need a lot of the same stuff, but it's just the verifying mechanisms are different. And for podcasts, it's a little bit longer of a process. Let's put it that way. All right, now that you've done all that, right, you've been approved, you're on, you're live, now you just start publishing. Record, edit, publish, record, edit, publish, record, edit, publish, right? And that's what that's the part we're in right now, right? Is hopefully if you're thinking about doing this, hopefully you can start thinking about those things I talked about before. Some of you might already be in this field where you're in the record, edit, publish phase, record, edit, publish phase. So this was vlog 2, just thinking about the way we do these things. Thinking about how the mechanics of talking to the internet. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for learning with me.